You ever get that feeling that there's a secret language all around us, a hidden code that's shaping everything, from the ads you see to the way you navigate your city? Well, you're not wrong. There is. And today, we're going to learn how to crack it. So let's kick things off with a really simple question.
No, really, think about it for a second. Why does red mean stop? There's nothing about the color red itself that physically stops a car. It's not a law of physics, right? It means stop for one reason and one reason only, because we all just agreed that it does. It's a shared symbol, one of the first pieces of that hidden code we use to get by. And this whole field of study, the one dedicated to cracking that code and understanding all these signs and symbols, it actually has a name.
It's called semiotics. And I know it sounds super academic, but stick with me. It's basically a powerful toolkit for understanding how our social reality is built from the ground up. It helps us see how all these meanings are made, how they get passed around, and how we understand them. It reveals the invisible architecture that guides how we think and act. So, to use this toolkit, we've got to meet the architects who designed it. These are the thinkers who gave us the core concepts we need to start analyzing this world of signs. Let's start with a guy named Ferdinand de Saussure. His big idea was that every sign, every single one, is made of two parts. First, you've got the signifier. That's just the form the sign takes. It could be the letters T-R-E-E, the sound of someone saying tree, or a drawing of a tree. Then you've got the signified, and that's the concept, the idea of a tree that instantly pops into your head. The sign we see is just those two things fused together. Simple, but pretty genius. But it gets even cooler. Another key thinker, Charles Sanders Peirce, kind of built on that and showed that signs hook up to their meanings in a few different ways. You've got an icon, which physically looks like the thing it represents. A photograph is a perfect example. Then there's an index, which has a direct real-world connection to its meaning. Where there's smoke, there's fire. And finally, you have a symbol, where the meaning is purely based on convention, something we've all learned and agreed on, like a country's flag or, yep, that red traffic light. Okay, so we've got the building blocks, but here's where it gets really interesting. What happens when we start applying all this to our culture? A thinker named Roland Barthes took these ideas and showed us how signs are almost never neutral. They're packed with these deep ideological messages that we just accept as common sense. So get this, an ad for a fancy sports car isn't just selling you a car, right? It's not just metal, rubber, and plastic. The car is the signifier. But what's being signified? It's ideas, things like freedom, power, success. Barth called this whole process myth. It's how our culture takes a totally made-up idea, like this car equals freedom, and makes it feel completely natural, like it's just the way things are.
All right, let's jump forward to our own crazy media-saturated world. Because another thinker, Jean Baudrillard, took these ideas to a really mind-bending place. He argued that our whole relationship with signs has entered a bizarre new phase. Baudrillard basically saw the sign as going on this wild journey. Way back when, a sign was a pretty straightforward reflection of reality. A map represented an actual place. Then, signs started to mask or distort reality. But now, he argued we're in the final stage. The sign has completely broken away from reality. It doesn't point to anything real anymore. Instead, it creates what he called a hyper-reality, a world of copies and models that feels even more real than the original.
I mean, think about a perfectly curated Instagram profile. It's not just twisting the truth about someone's life, it's creating a whole new simulated reality that only refers to other perfect filtered images. In this hyper-real world, the simulation, the representation, is our truth. Or what about internet memes? They're images that endlessly refer to other memes, creating this whole language that's totally detached from whatever its original source was. That's hyperreality in action.
Okay, but let's bring this back down to earth for a second. Because meaning isn't just some abstract theory or a simulation. In our actual lives, meaning is a social reality. And honestly, it's often a battlefield.
And this gets us to the core idea of social semiotics. It's a huge shift. It moves away from the idea that a sign has one single fixed definition. Instead, it says that a sign's meaning is totally dynamic. It all depends on who is reading it and what the social and historical context is at that exact moment. Take something like a national flag. For one person, it might be this incredibly powerful symbol of pride and unity. But for another person living in the exact same country, that same flag could signify a painful history of oppression and injustice. For others, it might be about heritage or even a symbol of resistance and a call for change. The sign is the same, but the social meaning, it's a total battlefield. So after all this, from red lights to cultural myths to the hyperreal, what's the big takeaway? Why is semiotics such an important tool for making sense of the world we live in right now?
Well, what semiotics does is it pulls back the curtain. It shows us that our culture is really just this incredibly complex system of meaning. It helps us see that symbols are never neutral. They can be used to prop up power structures and social hierarchies. It gives us the tools to pick apart how media shapes our very perception of reality. And ultimately, it just transforms how we see society, not as a collection of people and buildings, but as a vast, interconnected network of signs that we all use to build our world.
Which, of course, brings us to our final and maybe the most important question. If our reality is constructed through this giant network of signs and symbols, who gets to write the rules? Who decides what all the signs mean? Thanks for joining us to crack the code today.